Hey guys, this is the third video in a series of 3 total videos about mice and how to capture, eliminate them, and how to repel them. The first video was about how to make a simple mouse trap out of a 5-gallon bucket. The second was using common household food items and ingredients to how to make your own rodenticide. And the third one is going to be about how to make repellents. If you don't want to harm them and you want to stop them before they make it inside, you can use one of these 20 ingredients to repel them away from your house. At the end of the video, I'm going to give you 3 specific ways on how to use these repellents and how they work best. So let's take a look at each one at a time, and I'll link at the top the other 2 videos as we move along. Now, the first item we're going to talk about is peppermint oil, and it's really one of those things that smells great to humans, but with mice, the smell is so potent that it affects their ability to function in their own environment. So putting a very strong, pure peppermint oil on cotton balls and putting it at possible entry points where mice are coming in or where they've nested in the past. Now, this is something you'll have to do more than once across the however long this season is that you see mice around your house. Usually that's the fall months of the year when they're starting to look for a place to nest throughout the winter. So mothballs and pure peppermint oil is a great thing to use. And all these items that can't be easily found, I'll link them in the description at the bottom. So the next thing we're going to talk about using is cloves, whole cloves or clove oil, and put them in these small type bags. You can also use cotton, whatever you have around the house, but some type of small bag in pantries and possible entry points. And that's another thing that mice hate the smell of, is cloves and clove oil. Now, the next thing you can use that you may have around your house already is ammonia, and ammonia mimics the smell of predators in their urine specifically. You can place small bowls around possible entry points or areas where they nest in. Make sure that if you do place this out, that children or pets can't get to it, because ammonia is a toxic substance, but the smell it puts off can really keep mice from coming into those small cracks and crevices where they might take up residence in your home. Now, vinegar is another product you can use that puts off a very strong odor, and you cannot just wipe it on, but you need to spray this on with a misting sprayer and spray it in any possible entry points, any nesting areas. And I even recommend using something like this, a 75% vinegar, which is extremely potent, and it will drive rodents out of any area that they're in. They really hate this smell. But if you don't have the 75% or can't get access to it, again, I'll put a link to it below. But if you don't want to do that, you can use common ordinary kitchen vinegar, which is a lot less potent than the 75%. I believe this is 5%. So this is going to have a lot stronger odor, and we can't even hardly tolerate it. Humans can't even hardly stand to take more than 1 or 2 whiffs of it without being totally repulsed. Next is cayenne pepper, and I've had this around the greenhouse for years because I find it works well on not only rodents but other insects and other things that are around the garden, especially moles and things like that. But I really like sprinkling this around the greenhouse, around the outside edges. When it's really dry outside, once it rains, this is going to be diluted, so you'll need to reapply it. But if there's any small possible entry points around your home, cayenne pepper can irritate their sinuses and prevent mice from coming inside. Now, a very natural product to use is garlic, and crushed garlic, even powdered garlic, but fresh garlic I think works better. But this is a smell that kind of mimics a sulfur type smell. If you've ever purchased a product called Snake Away, it kind of has that same kind of garlic smell, even though it's basically sulfur. But garlic can work great at those possible entry points or nesting points around your home. Now, this is an old farmer's trick about using an onion to keep mice from coming into your home, but you take a whole slice of onion and put it in those small cracks and crevices where you think mice come in. The smell can be very potent to a mouse, which has a much better sense of smell than humans. So this is really a simple method, just taking a whole slice of onion and put it. Now, this is something you'll have to replace once a week, but if you're growing a lot of onions around your house, you'll have a free method of keeping mice from coming inside. So eucalyptus oil is a great way to repel mice. You'll need to use the trick with the cotton balls, soak them in there and put them in the possible entry points or any possible nesting places that you've had in the past. But eucalyptus oil, a little bit more expensive, but it also works really well, and most people actually like the smell of it. Now, earlier in the summer, we had a tremendous drought come through for almost 30 days, and it killed my lavender that was growing in the garden. But dried lavender or lavender oil sprayed around those entry points can work great to repel mice. Also, the cotton ball trick, soaking the lavender, putting the lavender on the cotton balls, and then of course putting in those possible entry points works great. Now, just ordinary black pepper can work great as well, and sometimes I'll go to Sam's or Costco and buy a large container of this, and it lasts me forever in the kitchen. So I actually have more black pepper than I'll probably ever use. But using this around possible entry points also works great. Just sprinkle a single line of it at those points. Of course, if it gets wet or rained on, you'll need to reapply this, but probably most likely about every 2 weeks, put this around the possible entry points and even in some nesting areas, and black pepper can work as a repellent as well. So my grandmother swore by bay leaves in around her pantry and cupboard where she kept food items. She would just put several bay leaves at the back of the pantry and on the shelves, and she swore that she never saw a single mice over decades in her kitchen because of the bay leaves driving them out and the strong, potent odor that they possess. Now, this is a less common item that most people may or may not have around their house, but I've had some old cigars that had dried out in a humidor, and so you can crinkle up the cigars into maybe just kind of a fine powder and put it in those small entry points. Tobacco is kind of a natural insecticide, and it also has a very pungent odor, and even if it gets wet, it still has its odor. So that's something you might do once every 2 to 3 weeks. If you have small rodents coming in through cracks and crevices, you can just put a little bit of tobacco in there, and it acts as a great repellent. Now, for many years, we had a lot of bird seed stored in our basement. We quit feeding birds when we discovered it was attracting snakes to our back deck area, but we took the mothballs that we were storing right next to the bird seed because the moths would be very attracted to the bird seed. So we just took those, and I took them and put them in large bags and crushed them down into this type of powder. It's really a strong odor that repels mice, and you'll just take this, make sure you're wearing gloves because there is a type of pesticide in mothballs, but just sprinkle it along the cracks and crevices where you think the mice are coming in, and this will work well. Crushed mothballs work great. Whole mothballs are okay, but I think it works even better when you've created a possible line at an entry point. Now, this is kind of a small container of chili powder, but for many years around the greenhouse, I had a much larger version of this. Under the greenhouse, there's kind of a crawl space, and I put this in the crawl space to drive mice out about 3 or 4 years ago, and I haven't seen any in the greenhouse, but maybe once or twice. But after a while, this does go bad, and I've tried a lot of these different methods to find out which one works best. My personal favorite is the chili powder because I had so much of it. I had quite a big container, obviously from Sam's or Costco, that lasts forever, and you just try to think of ways to dispose of it, and using it as a mouse repellent is one of those great ways. Remember, you want to sprinkle this around any possible entry points or cracks or crevices where the mice might come inside. This is something you'll have to apply again if it gets wet. Now, I actually like the smell of this next product. It's tea tree oil, and you can do the same trick with soaking it in the cotton balls, put it wherever you think there might be some entry points or nesting areas, and this will actually work as a great repellent if you happen to have this in your list of natural oils. So citrus is a great way to repel mice from any possible entry points and areas. If you're lucky enough to live somewhere where you can grow your own citrus, you can take as many citrus as you need, use the zest from the peel, and put it in those small entry points, and it will repel them very quickly. It's super strong to humans and 10 times stronger to rodents, mice, and rats. Now, the smell of coffee is one of my favorite smells, but mice, the reason that coffee grounds can work, if you put them in the small entry points, it can mask the smell of food. So if you have a pantry area that has a problem with mice, sprinkle this around the border and the base inside the pantry or any cabinets, and it can mask the food smells that the mice might be attracted to. So coffee grounds is one of those things that will make your pantry smell great, but it'll smell terrible, or it'll disguise the smell of any foods to any rodents. Now, I had an aunt that absolutely loved pine-scented cleaners, and Pine Sol was something she always cleaned her kitchen with. I'm not sure if people use it that much anymore, but that smell, undiluted in the cracks and crevices where mice might be likely to come inside, putting that Pine Sol or a pine-scented cleaner in those areas with a spray bottle, and you may have to do this once a week during the season. Remember that mice do look for nesting areas in the cooler times of the year, so a pine-scented cleaner can work great as a repellent. Now, this last method is something that's the ultimate way of recycling, but we have many, many cats, and many of them live indoors, and a few live outdoors that they can't be mixed together because of certain medical reasons. But using cat litter and the clumps that you get out of the cat litter in any areas where a rodent might try to come inside. Now, not the feces, but the urine is what the mice can be repelled by. They know there's a predator somewhere around, especially a cat. So a lot of times when you put those little clumps in the cracks and crevices, it will actually repel it, and it's the ultimate way of making use of something that would normally go into the trash. So cat urine is absolutely a way to repel mice, rodents, rats, and all the things you don't want coming into your house. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, I would give you 3 major tips as to how you can make any one of these work to its optimum possible point. You have to remember that some of these will break down in sunlight, some of it will break down in rain, and just over time things lose their potency. You have to remember that you need to keep doing this at least once a week or maybe 2 weeks if you have a serious rodent problem. Now, the second of the third tip is about placement. A lot of people don't think about it, but rodents can definitely feel the temperature differences where you have a dryer vent, an electrical line coming in, any possible place where they can detect an air temperature difference. They will go into that area thinking it's a safe place for them to start nesting and start looking for food. So looking for those cracks and crevices, dryer vents, anywhere, electrical lines coming in, you want to look at any possible point where they may come into those areas. Now, if you take steel wool or a scouring pad and put it into those areas, that also can block off their access points, as well as you can treat those scouring pads with some of the products we talked about. The third of the 3 tips is combining these methods. Maybe one method won't work great for you. Maybe you just have a very stubborn rat population that will go right past it no matter what you put out. So combine them. Don't just depend on one method, but use 2 or 3 of these methods and find out which one works best for repelling rats from getting into your home, basement, garage, or even in your greenhouse. So guys, I want to say thanks so much for watching. Check out the other 2 videos about trapping mice and making your own rodenticide if you want to try one of those methods. And I've linked those at the top in previous areas during the video so you can take a look at it. But if you have any questions about this video or any previous video, please become a public subscriber first. That's the way I filter all my comments, because I get so many I just wouldn't have time to read and write back a response to every single one. I wish I could, but it's just not possible. So again, if you'll subscribe to me, I will definitely try to give you the most honest and accurate answer I can. So guys, have a great day.